Hello and welcome to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. Today's video is going to be how to make these creepy looking finger place card holders. Now you can use them for labeling your foods, or if you want to use them as nameplates. I'm going to be using some plaster and alginate, which are products you can find at the craft store. Most craft stores will have a life casting little kit, which will come with both alginate and plaster, and they're fairly inexpensive, or you can buy the materials separately. I also have seen alginate and plaster at Target and Walmart. It's a very safe material to use. Some people do have some skin allergies and sensitivities, so you definitely want to read the directions beforehand and do a test area just to be sure. You're going to need something to do your measuring with. It could be, an old measuring spoon. This is an old medicine cup. The mixture is going to be 2 parts alginate to 3 parts water. So that means if I use 2 of these little cups of alginate and 3 bits of water, I need to make sure all of that volume is going to fit in this cup. And this is a 5-ounce cup. This is a 1-ounce measuring cup. 1 times 5 is going to be just fine. And also the alginate and liquid together, it's going to shrink a little bit on its own. Measure 2 of my alginates into this cup. Okay, so 3 of my waters. And then I'm going to go ahead and just take this stir stick. You want to mix this up to get it as smooth as you can. When I stick my finger in it, the volume is going to raise because the weight of my finger adds volume. It's going to take a little bit to set, so you're going to be holding your finger in there for a little while, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So get comfortable. Stick your finger in any quirky position you'd like. You don't want your finger to touch the bottom. You want it to float, because if it touches the bottom, you're going to end up with a mold that has a hole in the bottom. You could let it set up a little bit and continue to stir, but you got to catch it at that right moment before it solidifies, because if you don't, you'll miss your opportunity. You'll feel it get solid. It's kind of like Jello. Actually, early molds were done with gelatin. I went ahead and figured, since my hands were going to be tied up, that I would just cast an extra 2. You want to wait till the alginate becomes like a hard gel around you, and you'll know because as soon as you begin to wiggle your finger, it'll have a clean break, and at that point you just want to slowly ease your finger out of the mold, and there you go. So you're going to have a very limited time for how long you can use these. You can basically cast this multiple times until the algae has dried itself out. Sometimes I've wrapped these in a plastic bag and been able to get a few more castings. What's going to become your determining factor is how quickly it takes the plaster or whatever material you're casting in it to cure. For the plaster mixing, I have my plaster, some water, and some extra cups. Now I'm using these disposable cups, which is really important. Plaster cannot go down your sink. Any of the excess plaster that doesn't get used in these molds, I can just leave in this cup to harden and then throw it out afterward. When it comes to the plaster, I pour the liquid first. These are small little wells. Pour about 1/3 of my cup full here of water. And then I'm going to slowly start adding my plaster. I'm just using a plastic spoon, but I'm going to keep my plastic spoon out of the water because I don't want to contaminate my plaster. And I'm just going to keep adding until I begin to see a little mountain form. And when the mountain no longer dissolves in the water, then I'm good to go. Now you definitely do not want to use a finger here to mix your plaster. Have a mixing stick. Plaster is a chemical reaction as it begins to harden and it irritate your skin. Use some stir sticks. Also, if you have very sensitive lungs, wear a respirator. My plaster is no longer going down. I have a mountain form. I'm just going to stir that in with my stir stick. You want to make sure you remove any of the lumps. And then pour away. Now, if your plaster feels a little too thick for pouring, because maybe you added a little too much powder, you can just give it a splash of water to alter the consistency. Into the alginate we go. And you can see I mixed up way more than I needed. Give the table a little tap. This will bring up any bubbles. You're going to let your plaster fully set, and because there's such a small amount of plaster, you're probably only going to need 20 minutes to half an hour. The plaster's dry, so let's crack these bad boys out. And you may have to destroy your cup while you're doing this. I'm going to go ahead and gently work the finger out. You may have to tear the alginate to cast another one. Rubber band this together and pour some more plaster in, or stick this into a fresh cup And you can pour probably 5 or 6 of these before the mold dies out. If you have little bits like this, you can go ahead and clean them off. Now you're going to want these to fully dry out before you paint them, but before I do that, I'm going to drill a tiny little hole so that I can lodge a paper clip that will hold my note card. I just eyeballed against the paper clip the size of drill bit that I need, and because these are fresh out of the mold, they're going to be softest right now. Alright, now if you need to do any cleanup, now would be a good time to do so. If there's any bits that you want to scrape off, you can just kind of use your finger to scrape. Even a plastic butter knife would work. You want to hold off on the sanding until it's fully dry. So I'm going to go stick these out in the sun. This could take a couple hours. I'm going to give bottoms of them just a little bit of a sand. If you don't like the direction they're leaning, you can alter them with the sand. I want to keep it flat so that I can make sure I have a nice bottom. I'm going to be mounting these onto these little pieces of wood. And I'm going to go ahead and acrylic my fingers with some shades of green. I'm making my witchy fingers. It's a piece of scrap paper, and I'm just going to take one of my darker colors. I'm going to dip my brush, a little bit of color, and then remove some of that color. And from there, I'm going to do what's called dry brushing. If you are new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Now in my mind, I am friends with diva witches, okay? So I'm going to use these metallics to paint the nails on my fingers. While my nails dry, I went ahead and I bended up my paper clips to form this spider web spiral that will stick inside the nails, and that'll hold my cards in place. I just took a regular paper clip. I'm using a pair of flat jeweler's pliers to straighten it out first. And then I'm just going to begin a little curl. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I like it to be a little bit uneven. And then just bend, and there we go. I'm gonna leave this wood this color, and these are just some wooden shapes that I found at the craft store. I'm gonna use a little bit of super glue. And I have my accelerant. Shoot a little bit of super glue in there too. To prolong the life of your plaster pieces and to help protect them from food, you're going to want to go ahead and seal your plaster with some kind of spray coating. I have two different ones here. This triple thick glaze will put a very shiny gloss over your piece and make it look like it was a glazed piece of ceramic. But if you don't want that shiny look and you just want to protect your plaster, you can go ahead with something like this matte clear enamel, where it's going to be a matte finish and it'll fully seal in your piece. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already, and I hope to see you soon.